All right, people, we are live. It's unusual, this live stream, and unexpected. And the reason for this is this, as you all know, in the last hours, Saturday morning to be precise, since Saturday morning, Hamas has launched an unprecedented attack into Israel. And this is rather big news because the attack was not like this attacks just launching some rockets or some skirmishes near the fence or something like this. This was a bigger scale attack, and so let's jump right into it. I was looking through the news, but what called my attention to this was as I woke up and I was going through my morning swipe on Telegram channels, and my good friend Russell was saying that Hamas had captured an Israeli officer, Major General, and I was like, whoa, what is this? What's going on? So I went immediately to check it out, and yeah, I think it seems like havoc has been launched. And so let's see what we have here. So, yeah, I'll start here with AP News. So, live updates, Hamas attack on Israel. You can see on this image Merkava, Israeli tank. So this is very unusual to see. I mean, the last time I saw Merkavas destroyed was in 2006 in the invasion of Lebanon. That did not go so well for Israel against the Hezbollah forces. Right now, we don't know much. A lot of news are coming. I mean, there are talks of Israeli retaliation already. But let's see what we can see here is the militant Hamas rulers of Gaza Strip have carried out an unprecedented multi-front attack on Israel, firing thousands of rockets as dozens of Hamas fighters infiltrated the heavily fortified border in several locations and catching the country off guard on a major holiday. Hours into the invasion that began at the daybreak Saturday, Hamas militants were still fighting gun battles inside several Israeli communities. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared that Israel was at war and called for mass mobilization of army reserves. The invasion revived memories of the 1973 war, practically 50 years to the day. So as you can see, this is rather a big thing. I mean, for them to say that Israel was caught off guard, let's recall a couple of points here. Gaza has been basically an open-air prison, huge prison, land. The Gaza Strip, as you all know, is subject to a lot of violence from the part of Israel. It's an apartheid regime. Forgive me those who disagree with me, but this is the facts. I've dedicated, this channel has some interviews in English, and I've dedicated some of these interviews to the Israeli affairs, or better saying, the Palestinian affairs. And I interviewed people from an organization called Youth Against Settlements, Mohammed Kafesha, and he gave account of the day-to-day life that civilians endure to Israel occupation and Israeli settlers. And I also interviewed an Israeli former soldier, an IDF former soldier that belongs to an organization called Breaking the Silence. His name is Ori Givati. You can check out on this channel these interviews. They're all subtitled in multiple languages now, also for those Portuguese who have more difficulties in understanding in English. There are Portuguese subtitles already on these interviews. You can go and check them out. Yeah, but I mean, it was a Palestinian account and an Israeli insider's account, which I was most impressed with, about the policy that was used in territories of Palestine. This is not even, it's not Israeli territory, it's Palestinian territory, where Palestinians are segregated and subjected to harassment on a daily basis. I mean, I was told stories of, and there are many accounts and many testimonies. You can check this out on the web, of families targeted for night raiding just for training. So for the sake of training of occupation soldiers, they used to just barge into innocent families' houses during the middle of the night. I mean, with kids and everything, terrorizing everyone, taking the parent, normally taking the male figure of the house in custody for no reason, and then releasing them the next day or something like this, next day or in the following days, and making checkpoints, random checkpoints, just to arrest the Palestinians. And this goes on for years now. And of course, something like this of today, this attack, I hate to say this, but this, I mean, sooner or later this would happen, right? I mean, and now we are at a time of a turmoil, global turmoil, and it's you can expect more conflicts to spark throughout the world, where tensions are already in place. I mean, you have the recent case of Armenia and Azerbaijan, where it was settled militarily, and not the international community, the so-called international community, couldn't do much about it, rather than criticizing and starting to raise their voices and threatening with sanctions and this kind of stuff. Not much they could do. Other conflicts spark, for example, in the Balkans, it's a threat for also another conflict to be sparked between this nation Kosovo, artificially created by NATO in the 90s, and Serbia. And so, yeah, I think this is also a consequence. Of course, you have the stance of the major powers according to this. I mean, here in Al Jazeera has a display of pictures from the recent events here, and you can read here: Israel's military has launched air strikes on Gaza in response to a barrage of more than 2,000 rockets fired from Gaza Strip that killed at least 22 Israelis and wounded hundreds. I mean, 2,000 rockets, yeah, that's a big thing. But let me remind you that Israel has bombed Gaza before, big time bombings. I mean, huge destruction for much less scale confrontations. So this is, if you think about it, I mean, Hamas knows what comes next after an attack like this. So it's nothing that they wouldn't expect. And I don't know how people deal with this there. I hope I can interview more people that are on the ground in the future to know more about this from insiders' perspective. Right now, I have only these references and dozens of accounts, but I like to speak with the people personally. So, dozens of IDF fighter jets are currently striking a number of targets belonging to Hamas, terrorist organization in the Gaza Strip. You can look at it as a terrorist organization. It depends on the point of view. Of course, they are resistance to an apartheid state. This is true. I'm gonna risk being censored here, but one cannot dodge the facts. I mean, there could be. I remember in the 90s, think Isaac Rabin, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm mistaken. I think it was Isaac Rabin that was prime minister then. And things were calming down. And I almost believed in those times that a settlement, a settlement that can satisfy both parts. I mean, you just have to create a Palestinian homeland. You can leave land also for Israel to be. I mean, I know there are those factions in Palestine or in the Arab world that want Israel erased, but I don't think I don't think it is a realistic view, to be fair. So I think the best place is to have two countries that can live in harmony. Would be perfectly the best option and to bring peace. And in those times, I thought, I was in my 20s and I thought this was about to be achieved. And then Prime Minister of Israel was assassinated. Yeah. So, hundreds of residents fled their homes in eastern Gaza to move away from the border with Israel. Men, women, children were seen carrying blankets and food as they fled, mostly in the northeastern part of the territory. So yeah, this goes to show that these people were not prepared. This was completely surprise. Israel has tight control on this territory, and so an attack like this really has to go silent. Things have to be prepared really silently, because I believe that Israel has eyes and ears in every corner of Gaza. Well, not every corner, as this one was not expected, but yeah. The latest escalation comes against a backdrop of surging violence between Israel and Palestinian fighters in the West Bank, which is part of the territory illegally occupied by Israel and blockaded Gaza Strip. So, yeah, at least the Al Jazeera news agency recognizes that the territory is illegally occupied by Israel. It also comes at a time of political upheaval in Israel, which has been riven by deep divisions over more to overhaul the judiciary, and as Washington works to strike a deal that would normalize ties between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Yeah. And then you have, yeah, these images. And you have a lot of scenes. Well, this is let's recall that Israel has been for a long time the center of the destabilization of the Middle East, and many times on behalf of the USA. Israel, in the meantime, developed an efficient arms industry, efficient defense sector, but with a strong support always of the United States. I mean, that's the only way they've survived the wars they had with their neighbors, until they subjugated and got the upper hand. I mean, mainly by sowing division and destabilizing the political governments around them. So Reuters, let's see what Reuters says. This is an old piece of news, but it goes to show that this is not this is not something that hadn't happened before, just not on this scale on the side of Hamas. Let's see what 2 years ago, in May 2021, the news was about this. So, Israel and Palestinian Islamist groups Hamas agreed to a ceasefire effective on Friday after waging the most intense conflict in years. Here is the timeline of the most important events. And so, for example, in 1987, Hamas is created, and the start of the first Palestinian intifada, or uprising, which is the same, against Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza Strip. 2 years later, Hamas carries out the first attacks on Israeli military targets, including the kidnap and murder of 2 Israeli soldiers. In 1993, After years of violence, the first Oslo Accords aimed to establish peace between Israel and Palestinians is signed. This is the era I recall. Actually, it was not precise recollection because 1993 I was about 17. Aimed at establishing peace between Israel and Palestinians inside. Hamas opposes the peace process and seeks to derail with bus bombings and gun attacks in Israel. Israel's and Palestinians. I mean, I don't know if this is the reason. This is Reuters. This is Reuters' account of the history back then. Israel and the Palestinians failed to reach final agreement in the peace process at the summit in the United States in July of 2023 years ago. 2 months later, Palestinian protesters over a visit by Israeli opposition leader Ariel Sharon to Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in East Jerusalem, known to Jews as Temple Mount, because it was the site of the ancient Jewish temples and the Muslims as the Nobel sanctuary. So there's a conflict, this religious conflict at the center of it. 2001 and 2, Hamas carries attacks. Then it was a rather long period of more quiet. I mean, never completely quiet. Yeah, and you can look at this, but I'm just showing this to give perspective that this is a very long conflict, and in my opinion, it will only end if the two sides actually agree without external influence, or at least negative external influence. Because if you have external interests that do not that are not interested in peace can never be done. But in the ideal world, which is the world that I'm apologist of, is that there would be space for peaceful living between the two communities. And so the Siyasat Daily says Hamas releases videos of capturing Israelis. This is from these recent events. And I'm not going to show the video for a simple reason. I mean, as I've stated before, this channel is not into war porn. You can just go to Telegram, go to Twitter. There are plenty of videos posted there. I'm not keen to show explicit violence here, and I'm against violence in general, but I also think that one cannot be so naive. One must understand what generates the violence in the first place, not just look blindly at violence and call it false or wrong, because we know there are many double standards. Let's for example think that the conflict in Ukraine, for instance, that everyone is pointing the finger at Russia. This violates human rights and terrorist state, and all the name calling, all the worst classifications a country can have. And when it comes to the human rights of the Palestinian people, it's simple, they are ignored. And this is utter hypocrisy. And this is something. If you are a citizen that likes to be aware, that has a democratic sense within you, meaning that you defend the participation of people, common people, on their government's policies. That's what democracy is about. It's the people ruling. It's not the government ruling the people. It's the other way around. And then one knows that certain country which is supported by so-called, Western democracies, one can observe a huge hypocrisy here. For example, I give you this. You heard about the Nobel Prize. I don't recall the name of the. Give me a sec here. Give me just a sec. Okay. Okay. Hold on. Indulge me for. Okay, it's taking a little bit. Here it is. Okay, this is actually a Portuguese news outlet. Let's go back to the images here. And so, this Nobel Peace Prize awarded to this woman, Narges Mohammadi, and they awarded her with the Peace Prize because she's fighting for women's rights in Iran. And I can read the news in Portuguese, but this news is broadly published in English news outlets. So the president of the Nobel Committee, Norwegian Nobel Committee, announced this Friday the awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize to the Iranian Narges Mohammadi. I don't know how it reads properly. How it's so the slogan adopted by this by the movement that this woman represents, it's women, life, liberty, or freedom. In Portuguese, the word is the same. Expresses adequately the dedication and work of Narges Mohammadi. Okay, I have nothing against, first of all, on the contrary, I'm really for freedom movements, rights, human rights movements. This is like, it's, for me, actually, it's the number one priority is people's rights. And the oppression of people, and the discrimination of people, and I'm all for it. The thing with this one, I must say, is that I'm talking about this because of the subject of Israel and the double standard things, right? So, think with me, in all of the countries, people are concerned with this one person, right? All the spotlights are on this one person because of her noble struggle for women's rights in Iran. But think of all the countries that were destabilized by US policy, Western policy, where the societies simply do not function. And how can you guarantee women's or anybody's rights in these societies? Take the example of Libya, for instance. How can you guarantee? This is utter hypocrisy. This women is made a symbol for only one reason. It's to demonize Iran. We all know this, okay? So this is like standard policy. Demonize your enemy, dehumanize your enemy. And the worst part is that arguments like this and this kind of narratives are enough. This is what scares me, worries me, and angers me at the same time. These kind of narratives are prolonged, and then they become enough, for example, for Western population, Western democracies, to accept the destruction of A, B, and C country. Because they believe in their subconscious that somehow it's going to be better after the West bombs the crap out of them, and suddenly women there will have rights. Not to mention the Iranian government is often criticized for this reason, but let's not forget who created the Iranian government, if you think about it. Indirectly, of course, but it was the result of the US meddling in external policy. Just go and research the how this government, the revolutionary government, got in power in Iran after overthrowing a US puppet who overthrew in a coup a rather progressive leader. So I'm not going to get into the detail of this history. I'm just, of course, I support all the movements, but when these movements are used to justify the belligerence of a bloc or country towards another, this is where I mean, and this is blatant. This is what it is. It's being used as a propaganda piece. Legitimate as it, no one can disagree with this. This is the thing, the strong points of this kind of arguments is that it appeals once again to emotions, right? So defenseless women and this courageous woman is standing up to this oppressive government, and everyone can become solidary with these causes. It's easy, of course. It's correct, but let's do that with every. Let's not allow our governments to wage war in whatever name, and without even consulting the people, which would be, I don't know, very democratic. And so, yeah, this goes to then, of course, getting back to Israel. I was searching on my Twitter. And then I have, of course, Twitter is the first source of rumors, first of all. And there are already people posting that Hezbollah will be joining Hamas in the struggle. And then you have some war porn and destruction images. I'm not going to go into that. Also, news that the Egyptian army is put on alert to this on this account. But on the topic of Hezbollah joining, Hezbollah is a different force than Hamas, right? And let's understand one thing. When I interviewed, for example, Mohammed Kafesha, he lives in Hebron, if I'm not mistaken. He belongs to a movement that is against Israeli occupation, but refuses violence for this struggle. So he was actually very critic of this kind of use of violence to resist Israel. So it's not like everyone is on one side agreeing altogether against the other side. No, this is not clear. But so Hamas operates within the Gaza Strip. The Hezbollah has a more wide range of operation. The Hezbollah is a de facto power in Lebanon. We all know it's heavily funded by Iran, and it gets much of its strength and of its fighters. It's a renowned fighting force. I mean, let's take a look at 2006. Israel took a beating from Hezbollah when they invaded southern Lebanon. And so, yeah, this is a different force. If this force, let's just speculate a little bit, if this force actually joins the fight, Israel is going to be in some trouble. Of course, the Hezbollah has been very busy in the Syrian front lines, but as these are not as hot as before, I don't know. if this happens, it's going to be a real threat, because Hezbollah is a force that draws its manpower mainly from Lebanon. And why? Because Lebanon once a symbol of prosperity in the Middle East. It's like a non-state, non-functioning state, and then Iran finances this Hezbollah school. Hezbollah is like an alternative state inside of Lebanon. I mean, they have all kinds of things. They have infrastructure, training of all kinds. They take care of their own. They are a real enterprise, and they can be, and they are used to fight Israel, and they have developed their tactics well. And yeah, like I said, this can be a real menace. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, follow this channel. What can I say? I'm gonna be maybe post other not live updates about this, but I just I had to say something about this when I woke up and I mean heard this news. This was it is real breaking. Something big is brewing there, and we're gonna be following it. Okay. So yeah, I have this to finish. I would like to move out of the Middle East now and just comment on a late news about Ukraine, and it's the mysterious death of an American auditor. You know that is Ukraine is. The Ukrainian state is well known for its heavily embedded corruption, and United States is pouring rivers of money, newly printed money, by the way, into this state. It's supporting it fully, together with Europe, but it has been manifesting the will to fight the corruption within, because at some point this becomes too much and this pouring of money becomes too inefficient. And so this American auditor was found dead in Kiev. And I can read you. U.S. auditor investigating corruption in arms supply found dead. The body of American citizen Martin Hart was found between building slabs near a house estate under construction this night. There was an accident, assures the Ukrainian police, which was to be expected. There was probably a break in the cable, and the bystander was overwhelmed by the material. Of course, if we believe this. Typical Americans wandering construction sites at night. Hart is known to have worked with Ukrainian specialists from the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, NABU, before his death. And speculations is that he must have found something very interesting. And his death is, at minimum, very, very suspicious. I mean, okay, you draw your conclusions, do your own research, and I'll see you in the next one.